all those kinds of things. Sometimes, to Gen AI, it's just an account, but to you, the way the name of it, whatever the name of it's called, or if it's similar to something else, it might just be suspicious, but that's not something that you can teach Gen AI. That's just years of experience lets you know that, hang on, this account and all these amounts have been going through for the past year, and like really under the radar and stuff, and it's just little things like that. It's not going to solve all our problems.
Thanks so much for joining another edition of the never-ending climb for a stronger supply chain and procurement for companies running SAP. Today we have the tremendous pleasure of having the one, the only Susan Walsh.
Hi.
She is famous as the classification guru and the author of Between the Spreadsheets and the cleaner and fixer of data. So when you have those classification problems, which no judgment, I know a bunch of you have, she's the one to call. And Susan, again, thank you so much for joining.
It's great to be back. Thanks for asking me back.
Oh, it's so much fun. I know that I think several of us we're more than just fed up with hype. We know there's some cool new toys, they're doing some cool new stuff, but we're pretty fed up with the hype of it's going to do everything and, how some things get in the way. This Gen AI doing some amazing stuff, but the hype we're kind of done with it.
Disappointed face.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to cause, and it is causing so many more problems because either it's been missold, people don't understand it properly, or they don't understand its capabilities, or they're not managing their expectations on what it can do. And they think it's going to solve all the problems, and it maybe solves a little bit of the problems, and then all the other problems just get worse. So yeah, it's a frustration of mine, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah, there's a lot of marketing around it. And I know I came across some things where I was being pitched on a tool, of course, the unsolicited email.
Of course.
And you look through them, and it was talking about how, of course, Gen AI was going to magically transform and completely eliminate the need to ... And I found myself thinking, completely eliminate the need. Isn't this based on some of the same technology that thought I went to universities that I didn't go to and that was convinced that I had done things that I haven't done?
Tries to sell you things like the industries. I've had emails about fixing my roof. Don't have a roof to fix. So yeah, not great.
It's like I bought a microphone off of Amazon, and for the next month, all I got were advertisements saying, "Hey, do you want to buy another microphone?"
You're a bit late.
So this idea of bias and limited context are some of the things that can massively get in the way. And I know I recognize hallucinations are real, and the bias and limited context makes it hard for them to do the things they need to do. I know our team has helped overcome some of these because we have, an invoice automation product that uses Gen AI, but the time
Which
and the
sounds
energy.
amazing, actually. Sounds like it's, and it is, there are specific areas where it is fantastic. And then there are areas that you should avoid using it at all costs. And I think the problem is everyone blanket applies the principles that, it's going to revolutionize everything, and it will revolutionize bits of things.
Yeah. And the everything versus bits of things. A lot of that comes down to the bias and the limited context, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What examples, I know there's some fantastic examples of things that it's doing, like processing billions of dollars worth of super complex invoices and doing it without hallucinations. Super hard to get that right. Like massive investment to go and get something that can do that.
Yeah.
But then there's also use cases where, oh my God, I can't believe somebody tried to use a GPT
Yeah.
tool for that. And there's all of the
Yeah.
bias and limited context, and like the limited context can have some terrifying consequences.
Yeah. Well, there's a few different things that are involved in that. So first of all, the tool that you talked about, you would have built that based on your clients' invoices and data. So it's learning from their data, the same type of data, and it's improving.
Yeah.
And it's fact based. You're not asking the GPT to make a decision, you're asking it to read the information and decipher from there what's going on.
Yeah.
If you're using like an open AI that is pulling information from the internet, you don't know where the source of that data's come from. You don't know if it's trustworthy. If it's pulling from a lot of different areas, and it might not be an area that's relevant to your data set. So I think you're going to have much more success if you are focused on training in-house with your own data.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, even in like classification, it'll be very good at things like nuts, bolts, screws, and hardware or office supplies.
Yeah.
But start asking it to decipher people's names and what they're doing, or anywhere where context or subjectiveness is involved, where you need to make a decision on what it might be.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrific consequences a lot of the time.
And the ability, for instance, if your name was John Smith and you asked it to differentiate one from the other, the likelihood of it doing so is darn near, or doing so correctly, is pretty low.
Yeah, all it would do is tell you that there was a difference in certain data points, and it would make some kind of, yeah, but it's also about having the knowledge and understanding of your own data to know when what you're getting out of the Gen AI is right or wrong. Because if you don't know what good looks like and what accurate looks like, how do you know that it's working?
Yeah.
And also the other thing I kind of recommend is, if you are testing it out, don't throw your whole data set at it. Focus on an area of data you know really well and test the hell out of that first. Get that working and then expand it to the rest of your data.
Bite-sized steps.
Yeah,
So,
minimize
so
the
important.
possibilities of errors.
Yeah. It's this idea of things that it can be good at and things that it just should not be used for. And I know there's some examples of how you could fairly easily trick it, right? If I wanted to go and make it seem as though there's a picture of Susan Walsh having just been,
Eating a
normal.
salad? Never. You would never find that picture anywhere on the internet. So yeah,
There's,
like you,
but oh, hey, give me 5 minutes. Let me go generate an image and upload it to Wikipedia, and then ask ChatGPT the same question, and all of a sudden, it is an authoritative answer that sounds
yeah,
like, looks like this really was true. And
yeah.
this kind of opportunity becomes really, really interesting. There's some use cases where the sources need to be very carefully managed.
Mhm.
And how trustworthy is the source of information? There's some use cases where it's trying to be used to go out and research some things out on the internet, and those are particularly risky. And there's some other questions around mental health that I know there's a massive, massive opportunity to please don't use it for that.
Yeah. It's because there's no empathy there. You can't
Yeah,
read the room.
yeah, yeah, I absolutely can't read the room. And this, I think, brings it back to how important cleaning up the data. And sometimes I think one of your specialties is helping organizations with that lift to get things tidy back up again.
Yeah, and we really do believe that, organizations should own and manage and look after their own data. So most of the projects we do are kind of one-offs to get the client started in a good space, and then they can go forward and manage that themselves. Because it's really important to know what's going on in your data. You need to know when things are right or wrong so that you can spot things like fraud potentially, fake accounts, all those kinds of things. To Gen AI, it's just an account, but to you, the way the name of it, the whatever the name of it's called, or if it's similar to something else, it might just be suspicious. But that's not something that you can teach Gen AI. That's just years of experience lets you know that hang on, this account and all these amounts have been going through for the past year and like really under the radar and stuff. And it's just little things like that. It's not going to solve all our problems.
Yeah. There's the hype and the marketing, and there's things that it can do, but there's things that it's not ready to do. And it won't do all of it, but it can help with some bits, some
Yeah.
important bits, but not
But I
all of it.
think, yeah, it's the responsibility of these product owners to actually give a clear message to and not be ambiguous or suggest that something can do more than it can.
Alakazam! It did it.
Yeah.
So when you're working with organizations, and we were talking about, habits and how that consistency versus motivation is so important. There's
Yeah.
there's the consistency that the best in class organizations have. And that's like cleaning your house.
Yeah, that's the analogy I like to use, that and another one which I'll tell you about in a minute. But if you clean your house on a weekly basis and you do that every week, you keep on top of it, and so it's minimal effort each week.
Yeah.
If you leave it for a month or two, you're going to have a huge job on your hands.
Yeah.
And
And a
so
science
so
experiment
data's
too.
like that too. But if you're like me, even better, pay someone else to do it. I have someone come in and clean my house. Like they can do it faster, they can do it better than me. And they're in and out, and it's like perfect. What I value my time, and I don't want to spend it doing stuff like that. That's not my thing. And
Yep.
then the other analogy is, think of a classic car. Like you have to maintain it and look after it and stop it rusting and make sure the engine works and take it out for a ride. And if you don't do that, it's going to lose its value and nobody's going to want it. And data's the same.
Yeah.
It's all about maintenance is the not so secret sauce.
Yeah. And when changing master data, when cleaning, sometimes we've seen examples of organizations that want to go and change this master data without necessarily testing it or without necessarily making sure that that's going to work the way they expected it to.
Or maybe asking the people who might be using the data, because that's always a good one.
Yeah.
People, the users are the last people to be involved, whereas, I hear a lot, it's people, process, technology.
Yeah.
People should be the first point of call.
I came across an example where there was one part of the organization that really wanted to change something so that they could have 3 lines on their screen instead of 2, so they could tell the difference between a particular flavor of spend.
Yeah.
And without talking to anybody else, they went and changed some of the master data. Except the problem is that now created a third category of spend, but the contract rates weren't associated with that category of spend. And then
Reports
the
wouldn't run
vendor was
anymore, I'm
trying to do
guessing.
work,
Yeah.
and then they wanted to get paid, and people were trying to approve it, but it didn't have a rate. Oops. So
Yeah.
while cleaning, there's kind of if you have a shelf to put it on and everything has its place, that's great. But if you're trying to make a new place for something, that's a good time to
Don't
just
yep.
yep, yeah, just cleaning it all up.
Chuck it out.
Yeah, toss it. I love it. I think the opportunity for more teams to really appreciate the value in getting help with the classification of their data, making sure that they're looking at it right so that they don't come across something like, oh my goodness, this category of spend. I think you came across somebody that was 40% over what they thought it was in an important
Yeah.
category
We
because,
reclassified their data. Yeah, and legal services was 40% higher than they thought, which meant that spend in other areas was less than they thought. But I mean, that was just one example. There were a few categories where it was like 20, 30, 40% higher than they thought. Now,
yeah,
that could make a huge difference to the number of suppliers in that category,
yeah,
the negotiations they could be having with those suppliers. Even just analyzing what they're actually spending their money on with these legal services as well. It's the whole picture changes. It's a completely different picture and landscape you're looking at. How can you make decisions based on the best decisions based on the wrong information?
yeah. Pretty tricky.
It's scary.
Yeah.
But, it's not unusual, and I'm sure loads of people watching or listening will be nodding their heads and going, yeah, but we can't get support from the business to fix this. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. There
They
needs
think a
to be
tool
support.
or some magic Gen AI will fix it. Well, guess what? Sorry to break it to you.
If we
No.
sprinkle some fairy dust on it,
Yeah,
it's still going to be a
we
problem.
won't. Yeah. No.
Can you indulge me with, I would say garbage in, garbage out. How would
Yeah.
you say that?
Rubbish in, rubbish out.
Yes. Let's make sure that we don't leave that problem for our customers, for our clients, for our
Yeah.
partners. Susan, thank you so much for joining. Always such a delight getting to catch up and share some
Yeah.
stories.
Thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure.
It's brilliant. Susan, have an amazing day. And this has been
Thanks.
another edition of A Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Never ending climb for companies running SAP.